Hey guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about taking multiple choice tests. When I see what we did earlier this week on the small group reading and kind of looking at our NWEA and having a chance to talk with a number of you, I think having some strategies on how to approach multiple choice tests, especially in the format of reading, can be really difficult, and I want to talk about it and give you some practice. So you should have already read the Starbucks article before you got started in this particular session, but today I'm going to talk about some 5 tips, and then after you go through these tips, I want you to go back and try to utilize them when you're doing the Starbucks quiz. So our problem is when we're working on anything, we need to read the material. And I know for some of you, if I'm reading something I'm not interested in, you may have to read it more than once so you can get your focus in there so you really know what it says. It kind of goes back to that book, Head, Heart, when we really go back to the start of the year in that book. The first thing is you need to know what you've read. And so we have multiple choice tests. Again, please read the Starbucks article, not video, before you really get too far into this. First thing is I want you to go back and I want you to read the question. So you've read the article, you come to question 1. I want you to read the question. If you have to read it more than once, do that. You need to make sure you understand what you are being asked. And then the next thing you do is you don't immediately start reading all the possible responses. The first thing you actually do is, once you understand that question, is see if you can answer it in your own words. Then once you have your own answer, then you can compare it to the particular answers that are available to you to see how closely they match up. If there's one that matches yours almost spot on, that's probably going to be your correct answer if you've understood everything correctly. So answering it on your own in your head first is really the first step. The next thing, if you don't have everything that match up completely or doesn't match your wording and how you understand it, you need to make sure you've read all the possible answers completely. And you also must kind of have your own understanding of what each solution means and how it ties back to the question. Once you have that, you need to eliminate possible solutions. So if you can't at all, you want to remove solutions. So if A makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, you stop considering A when you're thinking about the question. If C doesn't make any sense, you stop considering it as a possible solution. And then you're really down to 2 options, and assuming that those 2 options are similar, maybe the wording's a little bit different, or there's something in there that you're not quite sure of, but you think it's still a possible answer, at least you've got it down to 2 possible answers instead of 4 possible answers that can really affect how well you do on those. The next thing is you really want to make sure you're paying attention to some key words in both the question and in the solution. So not's a big one. Sometimes you'll see which of these do not fit the scenario. But you also want to look at those always and never, those absolute language that we talked about. Typically when you see always and never, those are not solutions unless you're talking about something that really, really is an always or never, and those are fairly rare. Most of the time when you see always and never, you can eliminate those as possible answers because those are so absolute. And the last tip that I'm going to share with you today is really don't second guess yourself. Your first answer is typically the right answer. Go with your gut. Now, that doesn't mean if you go and complete other questions and you realize, oh, I've made a mistake, you can't go back and change it. But spending so much time aching over, I've narrowed it down to 2 choices, it's B or C, I'm not 100% sure what C is actually saying, but my gut's telling me B is right, but C, since I don't know exactly what it is, but it kind of sounds like it, maybe it's the answer. Go with B. If your instinct says B, go with B. You can go back and you can change it if you figure something out, you remember something, but agonizing over two choices isn't your most effective use of time. And really, it actually is really, really true that your first answer is typically the right one if you go with your gut. I've got more tips. This is just getting us started. So we will be sharing them more as the weeks go on. And so now I want you to go out and I want you to try out some of these strategies on the Starbucks article quiz. Thanks, guys.